these drinks are taking quite a bit of time. You can see right now it's 8:28. I don't know if you noticed the time earlier. So if you come to Sonic, remember, stacked in your favor, it's get half-price cheeseburgers every Tuesday night when you order in the app. And you can see the app right there. Like a little QR, you know, scanner too. Oh, I forgot to talk about my favorite actors. I'm gonna do that in a minute. I'm just talking about like temporary actors, or actually actors. So Trish Gillespie. She's a Netflix executive producer. They just came out with The Fire Took Her, which is a documentary. I'm sure it's making it to all the small towns, especially on Netflix. Her stuff is like no holds bar, and I'm always a dreamer to do narrative, you know, just let's do narrative, let's make it fiction. But she attacks the documentary style, full on, no lie, style of filmmaking. Okay. And it's now the Netflix one I saw about the sickness, unsick or something like that. I don't have to look it all up. It was rough. I mean, it was rough. I was looking at it going, I couldn't like really, you know, I got into it and I was like, this is really too much. Sorry. It was like intense kind of stuff. So I have to kind of, I've done this new thing. I used to be documentary. And I was always taught by Bob Lavelle at the Actor Studio Drama School at the New School Universities to watch documentaries. So I would just watch all the documentaries. My favorite one is Jesus Camp. I love Jesus Camp. And I also like, there's another one that's similar to Jesus Camp that's even better, or at least as good. It's about the Pentecostal movement. There was 2 of them that came out relatively in the same time on Netflix. Netflix does a tremendous amount of documentaries. But anyway, I'm mentioning Gillespie. She's out of Brooklyn. She was I think raised in the Bronx. No, Yonkers. Yeah, she was raised in Yonkers, and then she moved out to Brooklyn to do production. Amazing stuff. She was the one that kind of hinted Cassavetes, you know. Yeah, like Cassavetes had a script, and Peter Falk. You know, I get to talk about Bradley Cooper. Not that Bradley Cooper is anywhere equal to Peter Falk. Peter Falk, complete genius. He was Columbo. But, heck, you know, you take what you can. No, but Gillespie does good stuff. Their whole group is great. She went to Cuba not very long ago. I don't know if she got any footage of Cuba, but that'd be interesting to see. She did get photos that's released on some platforms. But anyway, regardless, you know, you meet these people. She's NYU. So all the NYU filmmakers that I've met, they're pretty serious, you know, New York University. I audited a class there and learned a whole lot in one day. Imagine what these guys learned in a whole year. But the guy that I worked with, he was some Polish director, and they were all criticizing Schindler's List, you know. Like, you know, I don't know if you should go see that. You know? And then the students were like, we saw it, it's really good, you know. But they were like that. You know, they'd criticize movies and stuff. But the guy that I worked with, the guy that I audited, he said there was a reason for filmmaking, you know. He was talking about filmmaking, and there was like a reason behind it. There is a reason behind it. And what he saw was another documentary that he was commenting on. And this lady had filmed the Olympics. So she was like this female documentarian. She's probably super famous, and I don't know her name, but the story I remember. And she was filming these divers jumping off these diving boards for professional diving, you know, in the Olympics. And she was running around with the camera. She had her crew running around, directing them and doing all this stuff. And she saw some of the behind scenes stuff. And when she saw this footage, which was on 35 millimeter back then, her face lit up. You know, she was just on the verge of tears and joy. And the professor said, that's why we do filmmaking. And he was right. You know, she went back and saw her footage and was filled with joy. Joy is a big part of it all because it comes back to you. Older footage will come back to you. And then you remember, as a filmmaker, you remember. And then that creates joy. It's almost like an actor who can recall memory and find joy out of that memory. That's why you act, to a certain degree. Plus, you get joy off of being a performer. You know, when you're up in front of the stage and you do something that's tremendously tough to do, the moment of difficulty, and it all works out, and you feel that sense of joy. You go back to that joy, and you go back to it, and you go back to it, and you go back to it, until it delivers you. Amen. I got to find out where I'm at right now because I'm trying to drop off a Sonic drink. But you remember. You know, I can go back and remember these great classes and these people I talked to that dedicated their lives in helping other people learn. You know, helping other people learn. I think it's probably over here. Anyway. All right. I'm kind of guessing, so I'm going to have to call them. Nice locker. It's interesting. 1-7. Okay, I see. This is the atrium. Kind of lived in these places before for a few years with my first wife, Sarah. But they were across the way over here. They weren't really kind of like this, but they were over there on the other side. Kind of a nice pool, too. Okay. Starting to see it's going to be on the second floor. Here we go. Yeah, so she was a documentarian a long time ago, probably in the 70s or 60s, and it was Olympic divers that she was filming. And oh my gosh, she was just so happy to see her old footage when they showed it to her. She was a very old lady. I think she had passed away a few years after the story, or maybe before the story, I don't remember. It was right around Schindler's List time, maybe early 90s, NYU. Oop, gotta go. And that was just a tip coming through. Look at this. You are cute. Bow tie and everything. Guy's breathing. You don't really want to pet other cats if you have your own cat. I've heard about this. I could be wrong, because your other cat will smell the other cat and hold it against you. I gotta go. The most powerful entity on the globe, the U.S. mail, by far. If it wasn't for the U.S. mail, Richard Linklater would have never been able to make his first film, which was first big film. Which was called It's Impossible to Learn to Plow by Reading Books. It is impossible to learn to plow by reading books. 100% sure. It's literally impossible to learn to plow by reading books. I made that one up. Sorry about that, Linklater. If he's watching, I don't think he has time, really. Working on something with Patricia Arquette and Ethan Hawke, maybe. No, I'm just joking. I have no idea what Linkletter's doing. Or the Matthew McConaughey gang. Okay. Off for more. We'll talk later. I got a lot to edit. Star Wars talked about Obi-Wan Kenobi being killed by Darth Vader, becoming a spirit, and then kind of in a way hovering over Luke and talking to Luke. Like, Luke, use the Force. In the voice of Alec Guinness, which Alec Guinness played the one and only Obi-Wan Kenobi. This happens in life psychologically. It really does. It really does. Now, what am I trying to say here? Sam Shepard, Pulitzer Prize-winning author, playwright, and poet, playwright, and short story writer, and novelist, but mostly playwright. That's what he got the Pulitzer for, Buried Child. Sam Shepard said the reason why he wrote the plays was because he communed with the dead. I don't know what that means per se, but James Lipton has passed away, and at times I feel a communion, and him, instead of saying, Obi-Wan Kenobi saying, Cole, use the Force. Instead, I hear James Lipton saying, what is your favorite color, Cole? Now, when I went into the office at the New School University on it was the third floor or something, whatever floor he was on, Bradley knows, as in Cooper, I remember going to the hallway and seeing a photo of James Lipton on the hallway, and someone had drew these little horns on his head. And from that point on, I thought, this guy is either the devil or he's an angel. I see him more as an angel. I don't think he would have been the devil. Although at the time, when I was there, in the dorm room, off of 38 East 21st Street, Park Avenue, I think it was 10010, I'm just guessing. I was on the third floor, and I was offered the script of Faust, because this Japanese director lady that was a student was directing it for the Actor Studio, and I was studying Faust. And I thought, perhaps James Lipton is the devil. He's not. He's just an actor. They get him confused. They're like, oh, he's an actor, he must be a devil. No. But this whole Obi-Wan Kenobi thing really does happen. Sometimes I do hear my father's voice give me a little hint about something. He doesn't really say, Cole, use the Force. He doesn't really say that. But there are other things I hear. So it's in Escape from Maine. Ultimately, we're getting back to Escape from Maine, because I'm writing it. And there was something like that kind of happened at times, Don't forget the kitty litter. Oh, was that my dad? It's just how the mind takes things and does this imaginary kind of stuff all the time. It does wonderful things. I got to pick up this Lisa chicken. Oh no, Lisa chicken seafood. You'll see in a minute. And why not Alec Baldwin? I just thought it was, appropriate. Not that his agent's calling me or anything. This right here says chicken, and it's Lisa's chicken seafood. But why not Alec Baldwin for my father? You want to have that kind of frame of mind when you're a director. Or if you're a writer, you want to think, okay, who am I going to cast in it? Well, I'd cast Alec Baldwin as my fatherly figure, ghostly fatherly figure. Because he's a good voiceover actor, and he's one of our best actors in the world. Alec Baldwin knows that. Him and Gary Oldman. And, of course, Robert De Niro. And Matthew Broderick and Sarah Jessica. But they're all great. I'm just saying. I'm just talking. I'm talking trash. It's called commercial trash. Got to talk trash. Keep yourself. If I was probably on an airplane, I'd be talking the same way. I go off and I just talk about actors. It just calms me. A 10-piece is $10.89. This is Lisa's chicken. That's really good. 5-piece, $6.39. This inflation. Get yourself 5 pieces of chicken. Look at their side right here. They got a combo, 2-piece, 2 dark sides, pepper, roll, and a small drink. Jump on it. Right now, I'm doing the budgeting thing. They're taking an order right over here. And Alec Guinness gets on the recorder, the speaker box. Luke, choose combo 7. Yes. Hello. Oh, y'all have fish. It's a 10-piece fish. Hello?
Yes, sir.
So you guys have fish? Didn't know that. This thing, that's a cargo plane Navy. Look at it right there. You see it? Barely can see that. That's almost stealth. It's a Navy plane. It can have like tons of crap in that. Can't even see it in the sky. So I got the drinks. This is a drink up here. We gotta have a reminder. I'll forget every time. So I won't forget the umbrella. That way it's connected to the drink. I didn't get a receipt, so I have to go back in and get the receipt. The best thing to do is just be as nice as you can. All right. It rarely ever happens, but check everything. Okay. Oh, man. But you want to go in as quick as you can, because they have to have copies of the receipts. So, quick as you can before you get to too many orders. You can find it on the POS system. This is pretty much it right here. Hello.
Give me 1 second.
No problem.
Yes, sir.
Lisa's chicken and seafood. We got the drink. We got the food, which is the chicken and I think some mashed potatoes, French fries, and a roll. They were out of jalapeno rolls, but the roll. Since we got the drink right here, then we have the reminder, which is right here. That way I make sure I don't forget your drink. Done it a few times. I still forgot even though with this, but usually I'm okay, so we should be fine. There's not a day that goes by in my mind where I think, well, what if Thomas Wolfe had an iPhone 11? Would he have done the same? Same with Jack Kerouac, Bob Dylan to Willie Nelson, you know? What about they had an iPhone 11? They could just press a button and start recording their life. And then they had a platform they could upload it on. Wonder what their life would be like. You know, Generation X, I talk about Generation X. That's my generation. And we always talked about how we were kind of left behind because the boomer generation was so large. And they had so much to compete with. So when they had their Cat Stevens or their Bob Dylans rise up, they had to be better than millions and millions and millions. Our generation is not as large. And there's a bunch of freaks in that generation too, because Thalamine. You ever read Cormac McCarthy and The Passenger, the Thalamide Kid? He wrote The Passenger. Our generation's not understood. Look at Pearl Jam lyrics, or even Nirvana lyrics, as opposed to the Beatles. Now, Pearl Jam, they were kind of like journalists. You know, they were more understood. Nirvana was going more by feel, for sure. But they were still, you know, borderline Generation X late bloomer. More like late boomers. I guess maybe they were on the verge of Generation X. I personally am a believer that if you're born prior 1973, you're not Generation X. You're what's called a late boomer. You know, your parents had to be from the boomers, not from like World War II generation. So I guess that's, you know, I mean, I guess I messed up on a lot of that, but I don't know. Maybe I'm really talking about commercialism. Is Generation X commercialism? Probably. Jim Jarmusch probably, or Jim Jarmusch probably knows more about it than I do. I'm just guessing. But I did do this timeline stuff. I did look at it, and okay, 1973, and then boom, it goes right into Generation X. But it can be argued that Richard Linklater is really Generation X. But does it matter? He is late boomer, maybe. I don't know. His parents are probably borderline, you know, in the right era. They were probably boomers. So who am I to judge? He's still Generation X, I guess. I'm sorry about that. I'll turn it around. Really what I was talking about is commercialism. Is what I was talking about. But they were late boomers because they were helped by the boomers. Their stuff was developed by the boomers, you know? It really was. The boomers helped Richard Linklater. The true Generation Xer usually is a do-it-yourself kind of guy, you know? But I don't mind help. I don't mind funding. So if you want to fund the channel, now's the time to do it. Just press the button and give, please. I need it to further the channel. I'm at 600 subscribers. We got 400 more subscribers to go. At least tell your friends about it. I have my reminder so I can remember the drink. That's how I got through college. It was things like that. So I wouldn't forget to go to class. You forgot to go to class. Yeah, I forgot the reminder. Yeah, I went to class all the time. Tons of class all over the place. Let me tell you. And the drinkage. Oh, hey, there you are. I talked to the guy. He was really nice. He came out with like his gaming headwear, you know, like those earphones for listening to like PlayStation and different platforms, the gamer. So I told him about the show. But I like this moment of the crickets. These moments are great. If you know I'm an actor, sometimes I hear Al Pacino. You know, Cole, the method's very dangerous. Very dangerous, Cole. Attica! Attica! Al Pacino. He's doing a whole kind of crime thriller show. Last time I heard the interview, I don't know if they're going to release it, but he's still doing stuff. Al Pacino. My goodness. They should make that like a cappuccino and then put a special kind of stuff in it. I'd like an Al Pacino with extra whipped cream. That kind of thing. You know, when you're ordering, it just sounds like a cappuccino, an Al Pacino. I like an Al Pacino with some whipped cream. Yeah, yeah. Hoo-ah, hoo-ah. All right. Sign my life away, babies. I don't know. Still trying to learn the song, though. I gotta go back and relearn it. There, something fell back there. Nope, not the kids, boys. Let's see. Nope, that's just a bag. My kids, driving my kids around, oh my gosh. One of my kids, we had to drive him around until he'd fall asleep. And I think he was like maybe when he was about 1 or 2 years old. We'd drive him around and then we'd stop and he'd start crying if we stopped at a stop sign. So he would cry. Then you have to go again. Then he would, be quiet, and then he'd fall asleep. And he loved driving. Well, not driving, but riding. He rode in the car a lot when he was younger. And I used to play him Peter and the Wolf, narrated by David Bowie. And his name is David, my son. Now you're probably thinking, did you name your son after David Bowie? No. The answer is I named my son after David in the Bible, who wrote Psalms and wanted so badly to create the temple. But Solomon did it instead, not David. David had to run from Samuel and write his poems as he did it. He wrote songs, which were basically psalms, but they were like songs. And they'd play them because David was the king of Israel. Now, Jonathan, which is my first name, was his sidekick. He probably carried many heads and bags when they would kill the giants. They were giant slayers. They killed all the giants across the world. David did. And Psalms. He wrote Psalms. Now, his son, Solomon, would later build the temple and write something called a very important book in the Bible, the Song of Solomon. The Song of Songs, as they say. And that's a beautiful, beautiful story that you should read to your wife every Friday night, if you're Jewish. I'm Messianic. But you read it right when the sun goes down. The whole book of songs. Songs of Solomon. The whole thing. Every Friday night. From cover to cover. Y'all can even read it together. From the first page to the last. And Songs of Solomon. It's Old Testament stuff. Now if you're going to read the New Testament and you're married, I would suggest Ephesians 5:22. Wives, be obedient to the husband, as he is obedient to Jesus Christ, who gave his life unto her as the church. Meaning Jesus Christ gave up his life unto her. He refers to the church as her. He gave up his life for the church and for his people. So that's what you do, you know, as a husband. You act as Christ, as Jesus Christ, unto her, which is the church. Songs of Solomon, great. Psalms is great. But read Ephesians 5:22. It's written by a guy named Paul, who they ended up cutting his head off. The Romans did, because he had to be a martyr. His original name was Saul, and they changed it to Paul. And he wrote Ephesians. He wrote to Ephesus a letter stating that Jesus Christ is King and Lord, is King of Kings. And she'll always belong to him. And only he. For Escape from Maine, I do want to have a moment where it might go back to the cabin. And he's reading the book of Samuel and the book of 2 Samuel. And these people knock on the door that turn out to be Mormons, and he uses what he was reading in Samuel to read to the Mormons. And then it just kind of cuts and then goes back. I know it's kind of out of place, but I think he could revisit the other cabins. Now, there's 3 cabins. Or there's 3 rooms in it, okay? There is the cabin that's in Parkman, there's the Guilford apartment, and then there's the Dover Foxcroft upper stair apartment, which is overlooking the town and the river and Piscatacus. It's a possibility that would be good. In Escape from Maine, there's 3 places Jonah lived. Jonah, Samuel Camden III. One is the cabin, which is in Parkman. The other is the apartment in Guilford that you can see the river. It's right alongside the river, Piscatacus. Then there's the Dover Foxcroft place that overlooks the Center Theater and the Masonic Lodge, and also a section of the Piscatacus River. They can revisit each other through those 3 places throughout the story. It can go back to the cabin. It can go to the Guilford apartment. It can go to the Dover Foxcroft apartment overlooking the Center Theater. This is going to be a very long story, okay? It's going to be a long screenplay, probably more than 250 pages. But I have to prepare each scene before I go into it for the care and the quality of where the story's going. So I think next, we've already talked about the choppers. Okay? We've established the fact that he does not want to be, you know, working on the choppers because it's deafening. But he has to. So we'll get to that later. We can go ahead and maybe have a scene next, which is logical to go to the next one, where he's laying down, let's say, in the Guilford apartment, and he can hear the tinnitus. He's laying in the small room that's easy to heat that Steven's talked about. Now, I'm getting ready to do another monologue with Steven, where Steven talks about his son, which is actually way later in the book, but I'm manipulating time. You can do that in a screenplay. You can manipulate time. So we're getting ready to revisit Steven, because I've already talked about Steven, in the actual Havenwood products, which was really hardwood products, okay, for the reality seekers. This is the narrative seekers, okay? So we're gonna get to Steven and repack. But first, let's have him go back to the, I guess, you know, you would say the apartment in Guilford, because the ovens are already going to be removed. And we can even do a sequence where you see the ovens being brought out of the, well, let's go to the next one over here. Of Aunt Dee Dee's, which is known as Aunt Cece's in the story. And we see that happening, and then it cuts to his bedroom, his small bedroom with the heat, the electric panels, and you hear the tinnitus going on in his head. So we have more of that. You can hear the factory in his head. He's laying there, and maybe he's got headphones on or something. He turns them off, and he can still hear the tinnitus, which is a loud, like a ringing noise. So he takes the headphones off, and he can still hear it. And then we have like a slow zoom. And then what will happen is it'll slowly fade, or actually not slowly fade, but it'll slowly dissolve back to where the factory is, in the interior of the factory, probably where repack is. And you'll see like a sign that says repack, and they'll understand what repack is. And everyone's taking these little dolls, which are these little, they're almost like toothpicks, but they're longer toothpicks. They're called dowels. And they're taking these dowels and they're putting them in these little Chinese takeout box looking things. They look about the size of a Chinese takeout box. Now, when I worked with these people, they had Puritan products on it. So it said Puritan on it. We might leave that, but that's a big company. So we're just going to replace Puritan with Havenwood products. Got me? And that is finally when Steven begins to talk about his son. I think this is before Jonah later goes off and has children. So Jonah asks Steven, do you have any kids? He goes, yeah, I have a son, and he went off to Arizona. And he has this little monologue. It's not a very long monologue. He goes, he went out there with his girlfriend, ended up coming back later, and he took off to Boston for a while. But the way he says it is magnificent. That's why I want Bob Odenkirk involved, if possible, you know, because it's simple little language, and Bob is great. Bob Odenkirk is great with language. Okay, so we got the two lined up. I hope they make the note cards. I'll write them tonight, because this is tough to do. The first one, he goes back to Guilford Place, laying with headphones on, takes his headphones off, and we experience the tinnitus. Slow dissolve into repack, and Steven has his little monologues. So we have two scenes back to back. Okay, we'll make two note cards. I've been doing that lately. Sign my life away. My life away. That's the Trinity River. The Trinity River. The Trinity River. Right at Clear Fork, the one and only Trinity. You know, I'm going to learn as I do this. Vowels are important. Consonants are important. Okay? Because sometimes I run things together because the creative mind goes off like a spark. There's Clear Fork right here. And I want to focus on language and learn to master it throughout doing this as well. And I do have a Speak with Distinction book at home that I can pry open. I use song, I use guitar, so that my speech develops even more. Because we're always working on that as actors. You can never throw that away completely. You know how Marcel Marceau, he learned mime, he learned grammar and mime, he learned how to speak with his body, he learned to be beautiful and tell you the story with his hands and his body, and then he threw some of that away over time because he allowed himself to do that. But I'm going to revisit, just as Marcel Marceau revisited his body all the time, to sharpen things. Then when the time comes to throw things away, then we'll get all Marlon Brando. You know what I mean? Stay in tuned as an actor. Focus on your speech. If you're going to write a screenplay, then write it. Do it unto God. Do it with everything you got. Prepare for your next scene. You know, if you can. If you want to run it all together, that's fine too. It all works. Anything goes. Anything goes. According to Coppola and the song and the musical. Right? Francis Ford Coppola will tell you, anything goes, you think. But plan, because that planning can be genius. It can be genius. It can turn into genius real quick, like overnight, if you've been doing it for a very long time. There is no overnight success, but it feels like it's overnight at times when you have a triumphant moment, especially in song. Okay, I need to watch more of my Richard Beato. There's the vision thing. We're going to be heading back here pretty soon.